So, good evening, everyone. Today I am going to explain my course project on functional of several variables and PDE. Now, in this section 1, I am taken this question. This question is telling about the given temperature at point P in xy plane is given by this function and distance in the xy plane is measured in meters. A particle is moving clockwise around the circle of the radius 1 meter. 1 meter center at the origin at the constant rate 2 meter per second. Now first question, how fast is the temperature experienced by the particle changing in the degrees Celsius per meter at the point P, given point P. Now first in part A, we will find the we have that the tangent at the P for a given point in the direction of motion is given by this vector u, and this is root 3 by 2 I caret minus 1 by 2 j caret. For after that, for the given function t of xy, we have to find the gradient of t at the point which we require to at the point 1 by 2 comma 3 by 2. So here I find the gradient of t and put the substitute. After that, substitute the point value and I obtain this vector sin root 3 I cap plus cos root 3 j cap. After that, we have to find rate of the temperature experienced by the particle of a unit vector. Means this is the function of the means this problem reduced to find the directional derivative of function t at the direction of u. So this is the formula for finding the directional derivative. So I put the value which we have find above, gradient of t and u unit vector u. So by simplifying this step, I lastly obtained 0.3935 degrees Celsius per minute. So this is the final answer for part A. Now part 2, part B. How fast is the temperature experienced by the particle in the degrees Celsius per second at P point? So here in the question given that the particle is moving around the unit circle at the rate of 2 meter per second. So for 2 meter per second, it is taking 2 meter for it's taking 1 second. So 1 meter it will take for 1 meter it will take 1 by 2 seconds. So path equation for that particle is vector RT is equal to sin 2t I cap plus cos 2t j cap. So we want to find the velocity vector. So we have to divide this vector RT with respect to time. So we will get this equation 2 cos 2t I cap minus 2 sin 2t j cap. Now we want to find the modulus of this vector. So that will be 2, which is clearly we can clearly see that. And the answer, we want to find the change in the temperature with respect to time. So we will to find temperature d capital D by small t, which is d temperature by d time. So t is a function of x and y. So we can override dt by dt by d capital D by dx into dx by dt. Similarly for y, which is nothing but the dot product of gradient t and velocity vector. And now we want to find the change in temperature per second. So we have to divide unit vector with the velocity vector. So after divided the value, I have denoted it with a vector u, which is vector v by modulus of vector v. So I multiply here with modulus of vector v. After that, substituting the all value, this value we obtain in part A, and now this two value we obtain in above equation. Now after the simplifying these steps, we will get 1.87 degrees Celsius per second. Now problem 2, the Celsius temperature at the point Celsius temperature at the point xy and at point xy in the xy plane is t of xyz 2x square minus xyz. A particle moving this region and position its a position at time t is given by x, y and z. Means this is parametric equations for the coordinates of xyz, where time is measured by the second and distance is in meter. So measurement is given. How the fast the temperature experienced by the particle changing in the degree Celsius per meter at the point given that. So this for part A reduced to solving the we have to find the directional derivative of t at the direction of the velocity vector of that particle. Now for find the directional derivative, first we will find gradient of t at the given point. So for so I find the gradient of t for tx yz. Then after tx yz, after finding gradient of I put the point in that equation. So I get 52 I caret plus 32 j caret minus 48 k caret. Now velocity. Now we have to find the velocity vector. So here the position for the parametric equation is given by it is given that x is equal to 2t square, y is equal to 3t, and z is equal to minus t square. So that is the path of the particle. So I want to find velocity. So I have to derivative this path with respect to t. So I get vector v as a 4t I cap, 3t j cap minus 2t k cap. But at which point I have to find the velocity? So that is t equal to 2, because putting the value in this equation t equal to 2, we will get the point which we where we require to find the directional derivative, which is 8 to 8 6 minus 4. So I put the time as a t equal to 2, and I get this vector which is 8 I cap plus 3 j cap minus 4 k cap. Now we have to find the unit vector in the direction of that velocity vector. So I have to find vector u, which is unit vector in the direction of the velocity vector. So this is unit vector. This is a velocity vector, and divide it with its modulus. And after that, I find the directional derivative of t in the direction of u. So I am taking a dot product of t and dot product of u, and this is the values, and I simplify that value. So I get approximately answer as 77.80384 degrees Celsius per minute. Now part B. Part B is saying that how fast the temperature is experienced by the particle changing in the direction of changing in the degree Celsius per second at the P. Here we have to find the per second. So we have to in the gradient of t, we have nothing to change, because we are measuring time in already in seconds. So we have to only multiply gradient of t with the velocity vector at the 2. So I am doing that only, multiplying gradient of t with the velocity vector, and we get the answer as by simplifying this equation, we get the answer 734 degrees Celsius per second. Now for section 2, designing a soda can. A standard 12F means flowed oxums. This is a full form for FTOZ. Can be of the soda can is initially cylinder of the radius are equal to 1 inch and height is equal to 5 inch. Now at this dimension, how sensitive the volume and the change of radius versus a small change is height. So first we will find the volume of the soda can. Soda can is nothing but the cylinderic shape. So I find the volume of the cylinder, which is pi r square h. Now I have to estimate that how sensitive the volume into the small change in radius. So I find the small changes volume, which is nothing but equal to small changes r into partial derivative of v with respect to r, and small changes in dh, small changes in height, which is into partial derivative with of V with respect to H. So I find both the derivative firstly, partial derivative firstly, then substitute it in this equation. Now, now the given radius is 1 inch, which is approximately equal to 2.54 centimeter, and H is 5 inch, which is approximately equal to 12.7 centimeter. So I put that all the values in this equation. So after putting that, I obtain this equation. So here we can clearly say that small changes can make more changes in dV, but small changes in dH cannot make that time of uh, that many of changes in dV, because here is the term is 64.516, and here is the term 6.4516, which is this term is 10 times more 10 times what can say 10 times after we get multiplication of this term, means this is very big term, 10 times big term than this term. So small changes in R is very sensitive than small changes in H for a for dV, means small changes in volume. Now part B. In part B, could you we are saying that could you design the soda can that appears to be hold more soda, but fact holds that the same 12 fluid oxyms, which is a unit of the volume. What might be the dimensions be? We have to find a dimension, but volume will be same. So volume of the soda can, I am assuming the radius of the soda can is capital R and height is capital H. After that, given that the volume should be same, so I am volume is equal to pi r square H, which is I converted the 12 fluid oxygen into centimeters cube, so we can easily calculate the dimension in centimeter at the end of the calculation. So I am so here is the volume. Now the surface area of the can will be means this system is like this. So surface area will be sum of the two circles area plus the ceiling plus the area of the cylinder, means 2 pi rh, surface area of the cylinder plus surface area of the two circles, which is 2 pi r square plus 2 pi rh. So after that so the S is the constant to the volume V. So so we have to firstly find the gradient of S from this equation and gradient of V from this equation. After that, surface area is the subject to the constrained volume. So we have to compare with the gradient of S with the into is equal to lambda into gradient of V. So we will obtain, after comparing that, we will obtain these two equations. Now, after solving this equation, we will get a lambda as a 2 by R. And then substituting that this equation in the equation 1, so we will get the relation between H and R, which is H equal to 2R. Now we know that the volume is the fixed, which is pi r square H is equal to 354.8824 centimeter cube. So we are substituting H as a 2R in this equation. When simplifying this equation, we will get 3.863 centimeter as a radius, and H is a 2R, means what is the R? That is 3.8363, and multiply it by 2, so we get H. So we get the required dimension, which is to soda can is of the radius 3.863 centimeter and height will be 7.6726 centimeter. Now fourth question and second question from the section 2, the Wilson lot size formula. The Wilson size formula is economics says that the most economical quantity Q by the formula Q is equal to square root of 2 km by H. And K is the constant placing the order, M is the number of the items sold per week, and H is the weekly holds cost. For each item, this is a given utilities. to which variables k, m, h is q is sensitive near the point, which is point is given is here, and give the answer for the region. So okay, first we will find the dq, means we have to find the which variable is sensitive. So we have to find small changes and small changes in q, and find that according to that small changes which quantity is uh, uh, contributing more part in sensitivity of the dq. That we will identify this using this formula, which is qk, partial derivative of qk, q with respect to k into dk, plus partial derivative of q with respect to m, and partial derivative of q with respect to h into dh. We have find these three quantity first from the given equation of this q, and after this is the three quantities qk, qm, and qh. After getting this quantity, we have substituted this quantity into this equation. So we get this equation, and I am simplifying this equation. At the last, we will get this equation. So now it is given that we have to find the value at the point 2, 20, 0, 0.05. So put that values in this equation. So after putting that value, we will obtain this equation. So here we can clearly see that the small changes in dk and dm, which is less effective than small changes in dh, because 8 means 800 is more, which is more than, way more than 20 and way more than 2. So small changes in dh can reflect more changes in dq for the given point. So here we can clearly see that we can conclude that the q is the most sensitive to changes in h. So here the answer is that the h is the most sensitive for given equation at the given point also. This is depend upon point. So now section 3. This is a problem statement. Cheapest storage tank you form has been asked to design a storage tank for a liquid petroleum gas. The consumer specifications call the cylindrical tank with the hemisphere ends, and the tank is to hold a 8,000 meter cube of gas. The customer also want to use the smallest amount of material possible in building the tank. What is the radius and the height of the cylindrical portion? Means we have to find the height for the cylindrical portion. Okay, so here we assume that the height of the radius of the cylindrical portion is r, and radius of the cylindrical portion is r, and height is h. The radius of the hemisphere will also be r, because of the we have taken the radius of the cylindrical as r. So a total surface area of the given system, the system is given by this equation, which is pi r square, total surface area of the given by this equation, because we can clearly see that this is a system like this. So surface area for this is 2 pi r square, surface area for this hemisphere is 2 pi r square, and surface area for this cylindrical portion is 2 pi rh. So we get total surface area is 4 pi r square plus 2 pi rh. After the volume, this is a volume of sum of the volumes of these two hemisphere and the cylindrical portion. That is 2 by 3 pi r cube plus 2 by 3 pi r cube. So that is 4 by 3 pi r cube, and the volume of the cylindrical portion, which is pi r square h. So it is given that we have to tank hold the 8,000 meter per cube of gas. So this volume should be equal to 8,000. which is units are in meters. Here the surface area volume is subject to the constraint volume. Surface area is subject to the constant volume. So first we will find gradient of S. So gradient of A from this equation and gradient of V from this equation. So we obtain this equation. Since the surface area of the volume is subject to constant, we can write that the gradient of S is equal to is the lambda into gradient of V. Gradient of V. So, and put the value of the gradient of S and gradient of V and equal the both sides. So we get 8 pi r square plus 2 pi h minus lambda 4 pi r square minus lambda 2 pi r h is equal to 0. So dividing this equation with 2 pi, we'll obtain this equation, which is denoting as equation 1. And another equation is 2 pi r minus lambda pi r square, which is obtained by from another comparison of the j caret components. So after that, we will obtain 2 is equal to lambda r, because r is never equal to 0. So we divided it by this equation by r. After that, is solving the equation 2, which is lambda equal to 2 by r, and putting that lambda value in the equation 1. So after putting that value, you will get the h equal to 0, means we don't require the cylindrical portion. And after that, we are putting h equal to 0 in the volume equation, which is this equation, putting h equal to 0. So we get 4 by 3 pi r cube as a 8000. So after that, simplifying this, we get r as a r is equal to 10 into cube root of 6 by pi meter. So the required height for the cylindrical portion is 0, and the radius is 10 into 6 cube root of 6 by pi for the cylindrical portion of the tank, which is radius is same for the hemisphere also. Now, sixth question. This is the second for the section 3. Hottest point on the space probe. A space probe in the shape of the ellipsoid, which is given by this equation: 4x square plus y square plus 4z square is equal to 12. Earth's hemisphere, its surface began to heat. After the 1 hour, the temperature at the point XYZ on the probe surface is. This is the equation of the temperature at the point XYZ. Find the hottest point of the probe surface. Okay, so it is the Txyz is the subject to the constant for the given equation of the ellipsoid, which is clearly observable. Now to solve this equation, we will first find gradient of T and gradient of G. Now gradient of we will find gradient of T using this equation and gradient of G using this equation. So we will obtain these two equations. Gradient of T is this and gradient of G is this. So we need to solve this equation as gradient of T is equal to lambda times gradient of G. So which is nothing but 16x I cap plus 4z j cap plus 4y minus 16k cap, which is equal to gradient of the component. Comparing the each x, y, z and component, we will get these three equations, which is 16x minus 8x lambda. Simplifying this, we can get x into 2 minus lambda. Similarly, simplifying other two equation and denoting it is with the equation 1, equation 2 and equation 3. Now from the one equation, there is a three possibilities. First possibility is that x not equal to 0 and lambda is equal to 2. So the first equation can be 0. So we get lambda is equal to 2, putting that value in equation 2 and equation 3. So this is in equation 2, this is in equation 3. After summing up those two equations, we will get z and but y and z both are equal. So we will get at the end y is equal to z equals to minus 4 by 3. Now we want to find the x. So y and z and x should satisfy this condition which is subject to constraint. So here x is unknown, y is founded and z is founded. So we will find putting y and z value in this equation and fetching the x from the answer. So this by putting the y z value, we will get x square as a 16/9. So x will be plus or minus 4/3. So we get this equation for case 1 where where the x not equal to 0 and lambda equal to 2. Now case 2, x equal to 0 and lambda not equal to 2 means x not equal to 2 and lambda not equal to 2 means x equal to 0. Now for the we will simplify the equation 2 and equation 3. This is equation 2 and this is equation 3, but we have already multiplied equation 3 with the lambda. Now after that we will be summing up these two equations. So the minus lambda y lambda will be cancelled with the plus lambda y, and we will obtain the after the and then we have only z variable in the equation, and RHS side will be 4 lambda. So what we can say, z only remaining z in the left side, we will get this formula which is 2 lambda upon 1 minus lambda square. So now putting that z into this equation, so we will get value of the y again. So value of the y again. So this y and z and x value should satisfy this equation because this is the main subject to the constraint. So putting this value in this equation and finding the lambda. So put the value and we are the 16 will be cancelled over. So LHS side will only have 1 plus lambda square and RHS side will have 1 minus lambda square whole square. So after solving that, we will get lambda as a 0 or lambda is a plus or minus root 3. For the lambda equal to 0, we will get 0, 4, 0. Putting the lambda equal to 0 in these two equations. So after that, we will get 0, 4, 0 as the lambda equal to 0 and lambda equal to root 3. We are putting that lambda equal to root 3 in these two equations again. We will obtain 0 minus 2 root 3 and lambda equal to minus root 3. Again in that equation, we will obtain 0 minus 2 comma root 3. So after that, the case 3 also, that x also equal to 0 and lambda is again also equal to 2. So by doing that, we will obtain the putting the lambda value in equation 2 and equation 3. So after summing that value, we will obtain the point as 0, minus 4/3, comma minus 4/3, which is not possible because it is not satisfying the subject to the constraint, which is this equation. So we cannot take consideration for this point. So we obtain lastly these 5 points, which is written here. So we have find the value of the tx, y, z at these every points, and in among these points, we conclude that the point plus or minus 4/3, minus 4/3, minus 4/3 has the highest temperature from the given points. So we can say that the temperature is maximum at the point plus or minus 4/3, minus 4/3, and minus 4/3. So the answer is given for the question 6 of section 3. Now section 4. Measuring the volume of the pipeline. You can you plan to compute the volume inside the stretch of the pipeline that is about 36 inch in the diameter and 1 mile long. Which measurement should you more careful about the length or diameter? Why? So firstly, the given data is not in 1 unit. So we will firstly convert that data into 1 unit, which is diameter, which is 0.9144 meter. 36 mile is equal to 0.9144 meters. Radius is diameter by 2. So dividing this equation by 2, we will get 0.4574572 meters, and length is 1 mile. So convert it into the meter, which is 1609.344 meters. So we are going to doing this using the Taylor's formula. So for that, we have to find these following derivatives. To put that all the derivative in the formula of the Taylor's formula. So partial derivative of v with respect to r, which is 2 pi rl, and putting that required r and l value, so we'll get this value. Following for the all the steps, we'll get this value. After this step, if we are doing any any fourth order derivative with respect to r, with respect to l, any of the equation, there will be 0, because we obtain constant at the third partial derivative, because we third partial derivative with respect to r, which is 0. So fourth derivative also be 0, and all will be 0 after the third derivative, if we try to find fourth partial derivative of any of this equation. So this is the Taylor formula, which is volume r plus dr, means small changes in radius, small changes in length. So which can be represented by original value of volume at RL plus partial derivative of r into dr, partial derivative of v with respect to l into dl. This is second term, this is first term, this is second term, this is third term, and this is fourth term. After that, all terms, the value will be 0, because value of the value of the partial derivative of r triple times to v, which is constant or a 0. So higher order values will obviously be 0. So we no need to find the terms of the Taylor's formula greater than third partial derivative, because after that will be always be 0. So put the value of the r and l in this equation. So we will obtain this value, means this multiply of dl and dr. So here we can clearly observe that this is the main value. This is all the terms which make changes in value of v when we are increase the radius by dr and length by dl. So here we can clearly say that terms which are multiplied with dr, they are contributing way more than the rest of the term, which is 0.67, which is 5.7476, and 18.857. So this is way more contributing way more than the other terms which are in this equation. So we can say that the small changes in R may lead more changes in the volume of the pipeline. Means we have to more careful about the radius, not so careful about the length of the pipeline. Okay. So section 4, second question. In the change in the electrical circuit, suppose that the current is I ampere in an electrical circuit is related to the voltage V at the resistance R by the equation I is equal to V by R. If the drops from the 24 to 23 volt and resistance drop from the 100 to 80 ohms, will I increase or decrease by the how much? Is the change in I more sensitive the change in the voltage or a change in resistance? How do you know? So here we have to firstly find the change in I. So that is di. So first we have to find the change in I, which is di. So that will be equal to partial derivative of I with respect to voltage and partial derivative of I with respect to resistance. That is our equation 1. So we will find both term firstly, this term and this term. So we will obtain these terms. So di can be written as this form. Now it is given that the voltage is dropped by 1 volt. So initial voltage is 24 and now current voltage is 23. So difference is -1. Similarly for resistance, initial was 100 and now it is 80. So drop by 20 means that is -20. So putting that values in this equation 2, we will obtain that the change in I will be 0.038 amperes. So I is for di is positive. That means the current is increased. Positive indicates that value of I is increased by 0.038 ampere. Now we will find the change in voltage, which is nothing but dV by V. Change in voltage and change in resistance both. For the given voltage change and resistance change, which is V minus V0 by V0. The initial value was 24 of voltage, and after that change, that is becoming 23. So that is change in voltage is minus 0.04166, or change in resistor similarly minus 0.2. So writing that in percentage, we will get change in voltage will be minus 4.17% and change in resistance will be minus 20%. So we have so we will also for the part 1 we will conclude that the I is more sensitive. That is already there. Now we have to find that the which quantity this part will be here, alignment changes, that's why. So we can conclude so we can conclude that the change is I is more sensitive than change in resistor from this clearly. And this is change in voltage. So after that we will find the percentage change in I, which is di by di, which can be given by which di is already fine and I is 0.24, which is current which is find by I is equal to V by R, which is initial I value. So the Vi divided with 0.24, we will get this. This is 15.38 change in circuit, percent change in circuit. 15.38 change in I causes the minus 20% changes V. Means small changes I causes the more changes in V. So we can clearly see that I is more sensitive than the V. So this part will be here. The sorry for the alignment changes due to PDF conversion. Now the problems which I plot for the project in real life application. First problem is from the linear integral. So derivative of the I am using that in the physics part. Application of this portion is in physics. So here we are going to use this formula, the mass formula of the coil spring lying among the smooth curve given by. So C is the smooth curve and spring is lying on that curve, following that curve, and delta xy is a density function at the any point xyz, and ds is the integration part. Suppose that the spring is following the part C is equal to vector rt xti cap plus ytj cap plus ztk cap, and A and B is the ending point of that parametric equation. So we can replace ds with the value of the modulus of v, which is nothing but the velocity vector, and dt, and so that we are converting ds into parametric form. We will be obtained by differentiating vector r by t, And we already know the moment of inertia I said is given by mx square plus mr square, where we are common the m, where m is we obtain from the above that integration of the this integration a to b delta xyz density function, which is density function modulus of v into dt. So, and the radius of the gyration will be given by this formula, which is r of l is equal to, here there should be l, r of l is equal to I of l by m. So this is a problem statement. A spring of the constant density delta lies along the helix vector rt cos t I cap plus sin t j cap plus t k cap. So we have to find the moment of inertia on the z-axis and a radius of gyration for this given data. So first we will find the moment of inertia on the z-axis. Here the given is that the spring constant density delta lies along the helix, means we have to assume that the density of the spring is a constant over all the object, means at the any point of the string the density is constant, not changes by xyz. So we will firstly find the velocity vector v for given vector r by differentiating it. So we will get this, and range is also already given. So now we will find the modulus of vector v, which is becoming a root 2, and x is we can replace the x and y using the given formula. X is equal to xt is equal to cos t, y is equal to yt is sin t, which is already in the rt part here. I am fetching that data from the vector rt. So putting that x and y value in this equation, which is nothing but the equation of the moment of inertia along with z-axis. So putting that value, simplifying this, we will get 2 root 2 pi delta. After that, we want to find the radius of gyration. For that, we have to firstly find the mass of the spring or a coil. So the equation of the mass is given by this, and substituting the delta as delta and v modulus of v with the root 2, so we will obtain the mass which is same as the moment of inertia. So now I will find radius of gyration along with z-axis, which is iz by r by m. So we will get this will be obtained 1. So this is the answer for this part. Again, this will be here, the alignment slightly changed. Sorry for that. Now it is in the part 2. Suppose that another spring of the constant density delta twice long as the spring in A, means we have to calculate the spring which is twice long than we will consider in part A. So for similarly we will calculating that. So now this time the limit will be changed, which is 0 to 4 pi. So doing that, we obtain this equation for the moment of inertia, and mass will be clearly increased because the spring of the size increased. Now, but we have again find the gyration of radius of gyration, so that will again becoming 1. So the radius of gyration is independent to the inner moment of inertia and the mass, or the we can say length of the spring. So we can get for longer string also inertia will be changed, mass will be changed, but the radius of gyration remains as it is. This is the for the problem from the line integral. Now another problem for the Stokes theorem. Okay, so suppose the butterfly net with the squared shaped rim and the wind is blowing through the net. Think about the square rim position in the space. This is the squared shaped rim, and that is on the YZ plane. So that after that the corners of this square is given by these coordinates. Suppose the velocity vector of the field wind is given by this following function, means air is flowing from this side to this side of through the net, means not this direction, but vector f is denoting that the air is flowing from this uh, butterfly net. So assuming the air has 1 kilogram per meter cube density, how much air passes through this net per unit time? So this is some assumptions which we have taken. Now this is the the flux of the F through the surface area of the. So we need to find only the flux, which is same as the finding the air passes through the quantity of air passes through per 1 unit. This is the formula for the Stokes theorem to finding the flux, and this is the F which is given, and we want to find the this what we can say curl of G such that this equation satisfy, means we have to find G such that this equation satisfy. So curl of G will be given by this formula, which we suppose the G having the three diameters, which is G1 I cap, G2 J cap, G3 K cap. So by following this method, we will obtain by obtain a curl of G as this, and comparing the curl of G with the F vector. So we will obtain these three equations. Now solving this equation, we will get G1 as a Z cube by 3, G2 as a X cube by 3, and G3 as a Y cube by 3. Now how we will obtain this? So we can do it by firstly integrating partially with respect to y to this equation, after partially with respect to z. After doing for all of these equation, we will get only three unknowns, which is G1, G2, and G3. So we can then easily find the G1, G2, and G3. Now we have to find at the point. Now you have to find the flux with the all of the edges of the square, because the assuming that the in the flux in the what can say Stokes theorem, we are assuming that we are calculating it the counterclockwise direction. So we have the formula of flux this, and this will reduce to these formulas: a side with dA, side with AB, side with BC, and side with CD. So this is the formula we obtain G from the above calculation. Now we are starting with the side D. So DA is that we are going to the point D to A. So we will get R1T, which is the parametric equation of the path, and this is the range for the T. And after derivating the dr vector dr1, we will get 2T K cap. So putting that in this equation, performing the dot product, we finally get 2 by 3 for the side D. Similarly, for side AB, we will get 0. Side BC, we will get again 2 by 3. And side CD, we will again get 0. So here is the same calculation, but performing for different sides. So total flux will be flux of the all sides, and that will be 2 by 3 plus 0 plus 2 by 3 and 0. So total flux is 4 by 3. Now another topic is surface integral. Taking that question from that side, surface integral is given by this formula for the G function, and this is also denoted as d of sigma. Thus directly jump to the question. Evaluate the pressure force acting to the dam scratching in the figure, which retains reservoir water of the width W and depth H. Now this is the dam and this is the water which is forcing onto the dam in the direction of the minus I cap. So for that, under that condition, this is the hydrostatic equilibrium, which is physics term. In the physics term, the pressure acting on the dam surface will be given by the function Pz, which is rho into g into h minus z. Rho is the water density, g is the acceleration of gravity, and total pressure of the acting the force on the dam, and h is the clearly that the height of the dam, and the pressure of the this is given by this formula, which is derived using the surface integral formula. And after that, the in our case n cap is minus I cap. The P is the pressure on the dam, which is Pz. ds is the area of the small box water in y-axis from 0 to w, and height is z-axis 0 to h. So integrating that fact, we will get lastly the force vector as this. This is the direction of the force, and this is the modulus of the force. So now we will go. Now we will find that the real life problem on based on the D'Alembert formula. Vibration in infinite length string. So for that, we will find first the given wave equation is this. This is the boundaries of x and t. This is the initial condition. These both are the initial condition, and the solution is given by this formula. So this is the question: given an infinite length string, find the vibration of the string at the position 2 time t, where the initial position of the string is given by function s and initial velocity of string is 1 unit. Wave equation for the string is given by the utt is equal to uxs. So comparing that formula with this formula, you will get c square is equal to 1, and these both are the initial conditions, which is given that the where the initial position of the string is given by x, means this is ux0. Initial velocity of the string is 1, means ux of 0 is partially derivative with respect to t in ut. So here c square is 1 and c is equal to 1, or you can take minus 1 as well. Nothing is difference in the result. Uxt is equal to 1/2. Now substituting this value in this main formula. So first simply substituting value of c, we will obtain this formula. After the putting the value of the x, we'll get this formula, and now simplifying this equation, we will lastly get u of xt is equal to x plus t. So now the u of 2, we have to find that find the vibration of the string at the position 2 and time 1. So we are putting 2 and 1, we will get 3. So vibration in the string is 3 units. Now similarly, another example for the heat equation. Sorry, that this will be heat equation. The boundary condition will be given by this. This is a heat equation. Boundary condition is given by these equations, which is u of 0t is equal to 0 and u of lt is equal to u of lt will be 0. And initial condition is u of x0 is equal to fx. So this is the general solution for the any point x on the rod at any time t. So this is the solution, and this is the dn formula. Now the problem is the uniform rod of 20 centimeter of am insulated over its side, its end kept over the 0 degree Celsius, and its temperature is sun pi x by 20 at the distance x from the end. Find the temperature u of xt at the t, given that u of xs at 1 by square is equal to ut. Now this is the solution part. Firstly, the initial condition is given at q of x0, which is equal to fx, u of 0t, boundary condition which is 0, and u of L. This is the also boundary condition v of u of 20 comma t, which is 0. Compare the uxx with 1 by a square utt with the uxx is equal to 1 by k ut, which is standard formula for the heat equation. So the k, we obtain k is equal to a square and put the value of k and L. Putting this value in this solution equation, we will get this equation. Unity as equation enough, we will find En, where the fx is sine of pi x by 20, and this is n pi x by L. L is equal to 20, and dx, and range of this is 0 to 20. I am substituting pi x by 20 as a t, and in this integral, so we will reduce this integration part with this line, which is 10 into 20 by pi integration 0 to pi sine t into sine nt. So for m equal to n, we will get, means this, if n is equal to 1, then we will get 1, otherwise any else point we will get 0 using this formula. So finally, putting the value of the n in this equation, we will get only result for d1, rest of all the terms will be 0. So we will obtain this equation only at the last, which is the temperature of u of xt at the any time t on the rod. Thank you for your time and all patience. Thank you so much.